dugsiga boardingka iyo maalinlaha ah ee Amano Boarding and Day School.
Another good morning is here, and I want to believe that Form 1s are doing well and you are still taking care of yourself. I want to welcome you to this video lesson 3 of the English language. Last week we were talking about ideas in the modern world, and I believe I took you through the idea of how to look at newspapers, brochures and magazines. And so we looked at different ideas and came up with different directions on how to go about those given issues. I want us to pick up from there today and focus on today's lesson, and the lesson today is note taking. When you talk about note taking, it should also click our mind that we had already looked at note making, and therefore we want to look at note taking, which is just a brother or a sister skill to note making. So I want you to move with me so that we get a proper understanding of exactly what we are talking about. Now, before we get into it, we have to look at the objectives of this particular lesson. What are the objectives? What are we supposed to get at the end of this given lesson? Number one, you have to listen actively. By the end of this lesson, you have to be able to listen actively. What do I mean by listening actively? That you are supposed to engage your ears, you are supposed to engage your brain, you try to focus and understand properly what you are listening to. Number two, you have to read a given passage carefully. Remember, we are talking about listening and speaking skills. So if you are talking about listening and speaking skills, you have to be at a point where one person should be able to read the passage. Now, if we are in a class like this, definitely all of us are given chance to read. As you are reading, that's why I'm saying you should be able to read a given passage carefully. And then take notes after listening to a lecture and a comprehension passage. That is the skill that we are supposed to be looking at, or the skill that we are looking at today. That it is it is not taking. So at the end of the lesson, you are supposed to be able to take to take notes. Now, what is not taking? We've always begun our lessons by defining the topic of the day. What is not taking? In this given case, we have to define note taking, that this is a practice of writing down or otherwise recording key points of information being said by somebody else, e.g. in a lecture or a discussion. That you are supposed to write down key points. I'm in class delivering, and after my delivery, I will be able to give you notes. Now, when I give you those given notes, I start dictating the notes for you, and then you take your pen and you start writing those notes down. That is what we are calling note taking. You write the notes down in your books. But at a given point, when I come and then I write the notes for you on the board, and then you copy those given notes, that is what we call note making. So the difference between note taking and note making is that, one, in note taking, you are writing what you are hearing somebody saying. You pick the main points. But in note making, you are actually reading something and making your own notes. Now, the two reasons why taking notes is an important skill are that, one, it enables one to concentrate. It enables one to concentrate. So if you are taking notes, you are able to concentrate. I want you to take a scenario whereby I'm in class teaching, or you are listening to a lecture, and then you just sit on your seat not doing anything. You just sit there and look at me. Trust me, you will start dozing off. You will start sleeping. But the moment you have your pen and your book, or the pen and your paper, and then you start writing down something small related to what I'm talking about, in that given position, you are doing what? You are trying to concentrate on what I'm saying. And then number two, it enables one to make sense of the text. It enables one to make sense of the text or what he or she is listening to. Self-explanatory. That you are supposed to make sense. Making sense, it means when you read anything, you should be in a position to understand what it is talking about. When you listen to somebody, at the end of it all, if this person asks you a question, you are supposed to interpret that, and then you are supposed to make sense of what you are talking about or what that person was talking about. Because if somebody talks to you and then you cannot interpret, you cannot make sense out of it, and then communication will not have taken place. So at that particular point, we get that we are supposed to move with that. Now, there are 3 skills involved in note taking. When you talk about note taking, there are 3 skills involved. 1, we have recording information. That in note taking, definitely you have to record what? Information. Without recording information, then you are not taking notes. Number 2, recording extra comments, questions or thoughts that you had about the information. Here, it simply means you want to link. You link what you have in your mind and what is being presented as you take the what? The notes. That you might have heard about that given subject at some given point, but then you want to link the information. How is the information I have related to what I'm being told? That is what it means by recording extra comments. And then number 3, summarizing the main idea of the notes. Summary is there. You have to summarize. When you are taking notes, you don't write down everything. No, you take the key points. Those are the ones that you go on and then you write what? You write down. So you summarize the main ideas of the notes. Now, there are different stages involved in note taking. Different stages involved in note taking. The first stage is before. Just as the word suggests, before. What does before mean? Before you take notes, what are you supposed to do? Prepare by finding out what you need to know and what the purpose of the reading process or lecture is. Find out. The teacher is coming to teach. I will take notes. And as I'm taking these given notes, prepare by finding out what you need to know. What do you need to know? What is the lesson? And then, if the teacher is presenting this particular lesson, what am I supposed to write down? You prepare, you engage your mind psychologically. We call that one psychological preparation. That you are able to prepare yourself psychologically before you start writing down the what? The notes. During. During means, the second stage, which is during, means you are into it now. I'm presenting the topic. The lecture is going on. We are into the during what? Process. The process is already there. What are you supposed to do? Note down main ideas and key words. Find techniques that work for you. You find it. It's yourself. It is you to decide, what am I supposed to write down? But remember, in the introduction I said, you are supposed to write down the main what? The main point. So during that, you go there. And then lastly, reflect and review and then organize your notes. Reflect and review and then organize your notes. To reflect is to think about it. You have now written down those given notes, and then you are now reflecting on what you have written down. The moment you start reflecting on what you have written down, you are at that particular point where you are trying to review and then to organize your what? To organize your notes. So organization of those given notes is very important, because at the end of the day, it is you who is going to use those given what? It is you going to use those given notes. Now, as we move on, we have what we call the 5 R's of note taking. The 5 R's of note taking. What this one means is that we have 5 aspects that take into effect when we are talking about note taking. And all those 5 aspects begin with letter R. That's why we are talking about the 5 R's of note taking. The 5 R's of note taking. The 5 R's of note taking. So all of them, they begin with letter R. So I want us to look at the 5 R's of note taking. What are they and how are they supposed to move, so that we get a clear picture that they are also involved in the 3 stages, but then they have been broken down, or rather they have been expanded into 5 more stages. So let's move back and get a clear understanding of what we are talking about. Number 1, we have record. that during lectures, write down all meaningful information legibly. During lectures, write down all meaningful information legibly. So, you are recording, you are writing down, you are taking notes now, you are listening. Remember, we have talked about active listening. The ears are supposed to be alert. The mind is supposed to be alert so that you are able to record or to write down meaningful what? Information. Number 2, reduce. The second R is reduce. After the lecture, write a summary of the ideas and facts using keywords. So you listen to a whole lecture, and then after you listen to the whole lecture, you reduce down, you condense the information, you calm down and pick the only important information that you are concentrating on. Number 3, recite. Recite all the information in your own words without looking at the text. Yes, that is what I talked about. Being attentive, listening actively. When you listen actively, definitely you will be able to recite. You will be able to memorize in your own words. Don't look at the text. In your own words, you can just be able to find out what was the teacher talking about. What have I put in my book? What have I taken down? What have I written down from the lecture or the discussion that the teacher has been presenting? So you recite all the information in your own words. That is R number 3. We move to reflect. Think about your own opinions and ideas as you read over your notes. Ask questions and answer them yourself. I know some of you will ask why you should ask yourself questions and then you answer them yourselves. The reason is very simple. It's because you are trying to tune your mind into active listening, that you are able to ask yourself a question about what you listened to, what you wrote down during note taking, and then you are reflecting on it. And then if you ask yourself a question and you answer that given question correctly, then you are there. You know that you have actively listened. You know that you have now taken down the notes properly. That is what it means by note taking, R number 4. So the last one we have review. This one is the last one. Take time to quickly review your notes, skim over the main ideas and details. You are supposed to review. When you review your work, you go through it, get to understand, have I put down the correct information? Based on the notes that I've put down, is it related to what the teacher was saying? If the answer is yes, then you are there. And then you are able, or you will have reviewed your work properly. And then at that particular point, you fail to understand, or you get to understand that you are at the correct what? At the correct point. Now, as we wind up, or as we summarize what we are talking about, it is good to understand that when taking notes, we use point form and not paragraph. So we use paragraphs at some particular point when we are writing summaries. But when we are taking notes, we can use numbers like 1, 2, 3. Those are the numbers. These are the numbers you can use. 1, 2, 3. So you write 1, 2, 3, and then you write your notes. Or you can use letters like A, B, C, then you write your note. Or you can use stars. You can just put there some stars when you are taking what? Taking your notes. And then dashes, we can also use dashes, 1, 2, 3, all those. And then we can also use bullets. These are what we call bullets. Or rather, arrows. These are arrows. And then we can say bullets. These are what we call the bullets. And then lastly, we can also have the dots. So that tells you that when we are at that particular point, we make notes using these ones here. We cannot run away from these ones. These are the ideas of how we make notes. We don't write paragraphs. When you write paragraphs, what you are doing, you are actually just trying to summarize your what? You are trying to summarize your work, which is not actually the correct thing. So having said that, I want us to end our discussion there for today and wish you a nice time as you continue staying safe. Let's meet again in our next video lesson when time allows. Thank you so much.